Hello Champagne Dreamers, welcome back to my channel. I'm your girl Miss J, the trash queen of glam, geek, and gore. And for today's video, I'm super excited to be doing a sequel to a video that I made last year in the summer, right around Pride time. I did a video that was a dozen black-owned makeup brands that aren't Fenty or Pat McGrath. Now, no shade to Miss Rihanna or to Pat McGrath. I love their products and we're going to talk about them more even in this video, but I wanted to do something that was looking at other brands, especially indie brands and maybe brands that you haven't heard of. And so I did a dozen brands with an asterisk by it, because we also talked about a few brands that had been around and went away, and we talked about some that I was waiting for products that I hadn't tried yet, and we're going to revisit those. So if you're excited to learn about some more black-owned makeup brands, then stick around. We're getting into it right now. Alright, so when you looked at the title of this video, you probably noticed that I didn't even tell you how many we're going to talk about, because I don't even really know. This video is going to take you places. We're on a journey. So there's a couple things that I've found out since the last video. So there's a couple brands that we're going to talk about that aren't black-owned makeup brands, but everybody thinks they are. And one of them, maybe it is, but maybe it's not. I don't know. We're going to talk about it. So let's go ahead and start talking with the first brand. And this is one that I'm actually revisiting since the last video. And that is Colored Rain. So I did mention Colored Rain in the last video that I did. I'll go ahead and link that video up here in the card, so if you haven't had a chance to see it, you can go back and look at the brands that I talked about before. But Colored Rain is one of the ones that I talked about. But at that point, I really had only tried some random eyeshadow singles and one or two of the liquid lipsticks. But they had a big release last year, and that was the Juicy Boost palette. So this was a palette that people were really anticipating. It's got a really bright, vivid color story. It's supposed to be inspired by all the different things that you can juice with. I guess the owner of Colored Rain is really into juicing and like brings juices and smoothies around the office. And so she decided to do this palette that was inspired by all of the foods that she was juicing and enjoying. And so a lot of people really panned this palette. I didn't think it was terrible. It was a little dustier than I would have expected, especially considering how gorgeous the Colored Rain singles are. But I love this palette. This was a lot of fun. These shades are a little bit of a problem, but these kind of chunky glitter shades are always a little bit of a problem. These have popped up in a lot of different places, and I didn't think there were any worse than these type of shadows from other brands. So I kind of like this palette. I did review it. I got the flat lay one. Another thing that was very interesting about this release is that they released this sort of flat version, and they also did a sort of book style where they took 9 and 9 and created a palette where you could like turn the page, and 9 of them were on one side and then 9 were on the next side. So I thought that was kind of cool, but I actually really enjoyed this. It wasn't in my top 20 of 2020. If you haven't watched that, I'll link that up in the cards as well. So it didn't make my list of products that I reviewed from 2020 of the best, but it was still, I mean, it was pretty good. And I did also pick up 5 liquid lipsticks from the brand. These came out with the Juicy Boost. They were part of the collection, and I thought they were fun colors. I was hoping that they were going to be dupes for some of my more unique Jeffree Star cosmetic shades, and I found that they actually weren't great as dupes. I was hoping this one in particular, Honey Mustard, was going to be a replacement for Queen Bee, and it's really not. This one is much more muted, much grungier, and the other one is more of a true bright yellow, but these are still beautiful colors. This dark navy is absolutely gorgeous. This green is very fun, and this metallic pink, and then this matte pink. Stunning. I still love the Colored Rain liquid lipstick formula, and me and Miss Rona, if she doesn't take off sometime soon, I think liquid lipstick is going to make a comeback. So definitely check out Colored Rain. They've got a fantastic formula. The next brand is one that I very briefly, I didn't even really mention it. I just included a quick note on a slide, and that is Ace Beauté. This is one where I've had these palettes for quite a few years, but I didn't know it was a black-owned makeup brand. And so as I was making that video, I was looking at lists of black-owned makeup brands, and I had already put together all the footage and everything, and I saw that Ace Beauté is also a black-owned makeup brand. So I made a note of it, but I hadn't shown any of the palettes. So these are 4 palettes that they released as sort of a series. I think they called it the Paradise Collection. They've all got names that sort of roughly relate to Paradise. This blue palette is the Slice of Paradise, and this has a beautiful rainbow color story. This pink palette is Blossom Passion. And this has all of the pinks and reds and berries that you need to stoke your desires. The purple palette is Paradise Fallen. And this is a beautiful dark color story with purples and some really luscious cool tone neutrals. And the green palette is Classical Paradise. And this one is probably the most unique. It's got some reds, a little bit of orange and yellow, and then this sort of greenish brown grungy kind of shade. If you're interested in Ace Beauté, I definitely recommend checking out some reviews to see if the formula is going to work for you. It's definitely a little bit tricky and it's not for everyone. The mattes are much more of a drier formula, and it's not like that silky, really soft, blendy kind of dry. It's much more of like a dry, kind of like how some of the Lime Crime mattes can be really dry and almost gritty. It's got that kind of formula. So some people absolutely love it, some people hate it. But if you like that kind of formula, those are some beautiful color stories. And they also have a beautiful collection of blues and greens called the Oceanic palette. And they have this really fun, I think it's called the Nostalgia palette. I haven't picked it up yet, but that's definitely on my list. And that's some beautiful, vivid brights. It's kind of like a rainbow palette with a twist. So I mentioned them in the last video, but I'm excited that I can finally show off some of their products, and that's Ace Beauté. All right, I'm ready.
Oh, we're already recording. Oh. Yeah, sorry.
Now, in my video, I talked about 4 brands that I hadn't had a chance to try yet. And since that video, I have received orders from all 4 of those brands, and that's Propa Beauty, The Lip Bar, Mented Cosmetics, and Black Radiance.
And we're going to get to Black Radiance in a minute.
But let's start with Propa Beauty. Propa Beauty is a company that right now they just have neutral nude lipsticks for women of color. They are designed to be beautiful nude neutral lipsticks for deeper, richer skin tones. Now these took the YouTube beauty community, especially the smaller creators that I tend to watch, by storm. They loved it. These have popped up in a ton of videos. Emily Hanhan has showed these off, Karen Harris, Angelica Nyqvist from Sweden. All of those people and more have talked about how much they love Propa Beauty's silky, glossy, luscious lipstick formula. Now, if we're being 100% honest, I don't love stick lipsticks. It's just not something that I prefer, and I certainly don't love neutral colors. But I decided to try these out, and they are great lipsticks. If you like browns and neutral tones and even some kind of browned berries and things like that, there are some really beautiful colors. Now, I tended to go for the darker colors. This is the shade Driven, which is sort of a medium to dark kind of chocolatey brown. This is Her Magic, which is a medium brown that has sort of like purple berry tones in it. It's really beautiful. And this is the darkest shade that I have. This is a shade Empower, and this is a rich, dark chocolate brown. So here are some swatches. This is Driven, Her Magic, and Empower. So as you can probably see from the swatches, these are beautiful. They're definitely pigmented, but they're not like super opaque or like super matte. They've got this kind of glossy, shiny sort of finish, and you can put them on a little bit semi-sheer. So you really get buildable coverage with the lipstick. If you really want to put it on, you can get that gorgeous, rich color. Or if you want it to be not exactly like a balm, but a little bit more sheer and just like a wash of color with that glossy, beautiful finish, you can absolutely do that. So Propa Beauty has some beautiful stuff. I'm excited for them to do other kinds of products, maybe more kinds of colors. I think the nudes were great. I think they were addressing a real hole in the market. But I'm excited to see what else they have that's maybe going to be a little bit more up my alley. Now, speaking of brands that are a little bit more up my alley, I also got my order from The Lip Bar. I ordered 3 of their liquid lipsticks, which did make it into my top 20 of 2020 beauty list. These are fantastic. And I also tried a couple of their glosses. These weren't in the top 2020, but these are still pretty good. I am not a huge gloss fan. I will use them for photos sometimes to get a specific effect, but for glosses, these were pretty good. I just am not much of a gloss person. I prefer more of a liquid lipstick, and the liquid lipsticks from The Lip Bar, perfect. And I also got an order in from Mented Cosmetics. Now, I decided to try some of their color cosmetics for the face. For contouring, I picked up this beautiful, deep and very cool toned bronzer in the shade Out of Office, and 2 of their gorgeous blushes in the shades Buried Away and Peach for the Stars. I've used the bronzer as a contour and it's delightful. If I'm looking for a powder contour and I want something that'll really cut my contour, but I don't necessarily want to put a ton down, if I want to cover a lot of area, I love to go with a cream and kind of blend it out and all that. But if I want it a little bit more jagged and I want to do a little bit more kind of editorial contour, that Out of Office bronzer is absolutely magical. I love it. The 2 blushes are gorgeous. I love a peach blush, and that berry toned is absolutely beautiful. They're so pigmented. You get so much beautiful color from them. Now, if you like really ethereal sheer washes of blush, those maybe aren't the blushes for you. These are definitely pigmented. You can put them on a little bit lighter, but they've got a lot of color and a lot of richness. So you're not going to get an airy, ethereal kind of application, but you can get a beautiful, colorful berry or peach blush look with those. And the other brand that I had mentioned in my previous video that I said I hadn't tried yet was Black Radiance. Now, they are kind of like a Wet n Wild, and in fact, a lot of the packaging looks like Wet n Wild. And I'm wondering now if maybe it's made by the same factory that does Wet n Wild. But it's inexpensive, they have beautiful things, and so I went a little wild. I ordered this Color Perfect highlighting powder in a very, very deep shade, also for contouring to add a little bit of shimmer into my contour. 2 of these small 12-pan eyeshadow palettes in Out of the Blue and Jaded. This True Complexion highlighter trio. The Metalicious Lip Lacquer in Top Heavy. I so can relate. The Perfect Tone... What the fuck is that called? The Perfect Tone Matte Lip Cream in Melanin Goddess. I realize I have no melanin, but I still love green. The Eye Appeal Lid Glitz in Moneymaker. The Perfect Tone Matte Lip Color in 5123. I'm not sure why this one doesn't have a name, but it doesn't seem to have a name. I don't know why. And a matte setting spray. So I have been super excited to get all of these products. I've been playing with them a little bit, but after I placed that order and I got them in, I found an article that said that Black Radiance isn't actually a Black-owned makeup brand. They were saying that it's one that is developed and it's meant to be targeted toward Black consumers, but that it's not actually Black-owned. So I've been trying to do my own research, and I'm not very good at figuring out who owns companies and things like that. So I don't know if anybody can help me out down in the comments. I can't confirm or deny whether or not this is a Black-owned makeup brand. It absolutely is targeted toward Black consumers, and it is designed and developed with deeper skin tones in mind. But at this time, I don't know if it's a Black-owned makeup brand. I'm including it because I found it on lots of lists. But there are lots of times where if somebody's putting together a list, if somebody thinks that something is Black-owned, they'll just put it on the list and that information starts to spread. And that actually happened for the owner of Give Me Glow. So JD Glow, with a very similar name, is a Black-owned makeup brand. I did talk about them in my previous video. They have a name that sounds like Give Me Glow, and there was some confusion, and there was a list that was published that said that Give Me Glow was a Black-owned makeup brand. And so she was kind of put in the uncomfortable position of having to say, I really support Black-owned makeup brands, and I'm glad that people are excited about our products, but I have to tell you, to be transparent, that I'm not Black. This is not a Black-owned makeup brand. So sometimes those things get mixed up and they get spread around. So I am still trying to figure out. I included them just because I had mentioned them in the previous video, and I thought that this was a good time to chat about it, and I figured let's talk about it. And when we're being conscious consumers, if that's something that we care about, it's important to really research the companies as best we can to try to figure out if what we've heard about them is true. And that research is really important for another brand that people often think is a Black-owned makeup brand, and that's Mented Cosmetics. Now, Black Up Cosmetics was a Black-owned makeup brand, and it still finds its way onto a lot of lists about Black-owned makeup brands. I've done a little bit of digging, and it sounds like there's some real drama about this. So this was created by a Black makeup artist, and my understanding is that he was kind of forced out by his investors. And so now those investors have continued on the brand. They're still marketing it as a Black beauty brand, but it sounds like the way that they treated him was actually really kind of negative. And so they're kind of riding this positive press of them being a Black-owned makeup brand. And it was founded as a Black-owned makeup brand, but it's no longer owned by the person who founded it. So, Black Up, you got some work to do. It's time to make amends. That was dumb. We went because of that. Alright, so those were the 4 that I had mentioned in my previous video. Now I have a few more brands that I want to talk about that I've tried that are Black-owned makeup brands. And let's start with one that is, again, absolutely a favorite of a lot of the creators that I watch. I hear this name all the time, and so I finally had to try some of the products, and that is Danessa Hicks. Danessa Hicks over the summer had a Pride bundle where she put together some of the products in her line into sort of a rainbow collection and offered them as a bundle. And they included 3 of the Color Fix cream colors. The pink is a matte, and the green and the purple are a metallic shimmer. And 3 shades of her waterproof cushion color. Now, I've played with this. I don't always love things that are in these like cushions, but these, if you want just a wash of color that you're going to put shadow over, these will lay down a great base for you. So I do like them for that. And the cream colors are really beautiful. These you can also use as a base to lay shadow over, or these are pigmented enough that if you wanted to apply these, you could get a pretty good look using just the cream itself. Now, in my review, if I'm keeping it 100 with you, I did talk about the fact that I think it's interesting. Nobody really criticized Danessa Hicks for coming out with a Pride collection. We've had a lot of discussion in the beauty space about rainbow washing and Pride washing and people who put together bundles for Pride, and is that okay? Now, I am an old queer, like I go back pretty far, and so I remember the days where nobody was willing to talk about Pride, nobody was willing to have rainbow, anything. They didn't want anything to do with it, they wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. So, in terms of the visibility, I like that companies are starting to reach out. They're starting to recognize that Pride is something where people want to find products that are rainbow and beautiful. But this did not have any sort of charitable donation associated with it, and it didn't include any out queer creators as part of a campaign. I do have to give them a little bit of side eye. I hope that they will maybe take some of the feedback and let's see what they do next year. Maybe they'll do another Pride collection, and maybe they'll choose to focus on some really wonderful queer Black creators to help promote the products. Another Black-owned makeup brand that I had that I didn't know was Black-owned, I've had this palette for a little while now, and that is the Slush palette from September Rose Cosmetics. I love this palette. I had no idea that this was a Black-owned makeup brand until Angelica Nyqvist from Sweden happened to mention it in a video. And I did a little bit of research and confirmed that they are a Black-owned makeup brand. This is a beautiful rainbow palette with a collection of mattes and shimmers. I absolutely love this. And they do have a Slush Volume 2, which has more rainbow shades that are all mattes. So I haven't had a chance to order that one, but I'm definitely going to give that a try. But this one, if you're looking for a rainbow palette with some interesting range of shades. Now, this is typical with rainbow palettes, and it hurts my heart because these are always my favorite. There's not as many of the yellow and green shades as there are of, like, there's a whole row of blue, a whole row of purple, the pinks get a whole row, and the orange get a whole row, and green and yellow is just kind of smushed together. I would love to see a 6-row palette where each one gets a full treatment, but I do love this palette. It's good quality. You can make beautiful rainbow looks with these, and I am loving the Slush palette by September Rose. So definitely check them out. Don't let the international shipping scare you away. It's definitely worth it. And the last brand that I want to talk about in this video, the clownery, is Pat McGrath.
Excuse me? Girl, what are you talking about?
So, the last video and this video are called Black-owned makeup brands that are not Fenty or Pat McGrath. And I did talk about the fact in the last video that you can't really count Fenty as a Black-owned makeup brand. It's a Kendo brand, and so Rihanna owns part of that brand, And I've heard some figures, I think it was in a Jen Loves review video, where she estimated, or she said that it was reported, that Rihanna owned about 15% of that. So certainly she's benefiting from that, and nobody can argue that Fenty is doing great things in terms of their advertising and their inclusion, and really promoting a diverse view of beauty. No complaints there. And I have a lot of Fenty products. I've actually done a full face of Fenty in a Face Friday on my website, janessaj.com. I'll include the link to that Face Friday down below so you can see what I did. And I love Fenty products. I have a lot of Fenty products, but it's not technically a black-owned makeup brand. Now, Pat McGrath is a black-owned makeup brand. I didn't include her in the previous video because I don't think she needs it, right? Like, at the time, we were really looking at how can we support black businesses? How can we support black indie businesses especially, and black women-owned businesses? And I think that Pat McGrath really is wonderful. And I think that she's a legend in the makeup world, but she's kind of made it, right? Like, she's in Sephora, she's got her own website, she's making bank. She didn't need the promotion, but I did buy some of her stuff over the holidays. So I'll go ahead and link my Sephora VIB sale. This was coming up right before Thanksgiving and rolling into the holidays. They did a VIB sale, and I purchased a couple of things from Pat McGrath. I picked up this little 3-pan highlighter palette, and then I picked up her Celestial Divinity Mothership Mega Palette that she released for holiday.
Oh no!
Did you drop something again?
Well, one of the shades just broke.
Oh!
So I just won't hold it up. I'll just tell them that I'm not going to hold it up. I'll include a picture of the palette here. I can't show it to you because as I was opening it to show it to you, one of the shades just fell out onto my filming table and smashed. Fuck my life! And this is probably a good way to segue into me talking about how I feel about Pat McGrath. I think that she does great stuff. Like, I'm always super entranced by her products, but once I have them in my hand, they're not that different from other products that I have in my collection at much more affordable prices. Her shimmers are beautiful, but they're so soft that sometimes they just fall out of the pan. So I love this palette. I'm glad that I have it, but it really did convince me that I don't need a big $125 Mothership palette. I just don't. Those shades are beautiful. They're absolutely lovely. They're not special. If you want to hear more about that, I'll include a link up here where I talked about things we're not going to do anymore in 2021. But I just think they're great, and if you can afford them, and if they really bring you joy, then go ahead and do it. But it's not like these products aren't going to have the same kind of problems and challenges that other products do. Now, I'm glad that I tried them, and spoiler alert, I actually have a bunch of lipsticks coming from Pat McGrath as well. Her lipsticks are $38 a piece. Some of them are $48, but they went on sale over the holidays for $12. So they haven't arrived yet as of this filming, but I am super excited to play with those as well because I ordered a bunch of shades. I mean, they were $12. Why not? But I really love what Pat McGrath is doing, but I think that I get much more joy, I get much more use out of the things that I've purchased from indie brands, from smaller brands. So all the love to Pat McGrath, and I'm glad that I have the stuff that I have, but I don't think that I'm going to become a Pat McGrath super fan. Sorry, Auntie Pat. Now, in my last video, I also included some brands that I was looking to try. Those are the 4 that I talked about in the middle of this video. And I do have one brand that I'm super excited to check out, and that is Black Cosmetics, and that's BLAQUE. And they have the Black Power and the Black Power 2.0. They look like the Black Lives Matter fist, and then you open them up, and all of the shades are named after Black activists and cultural icons and just fabulous figures from history. So I am definitely excited to check out both of those palettes. They have both been sold out anytime that I've gone. The pink one, the 2.0, just recently released, and I think it sold out pretty quickly. So I am definitely going to add those to my collection at some point, and who knows, maybe we'll have a part 3. But if you know of any other Black-owned makeup brands that I haven't talked about in this video or in my previous video, definitely let me know in the comment section below, because I'm always looking for new brands to try out, and especially supporting Black-owned makeup brands. Alright, that is the video. Thank you so much for watching. Definitely go down in the comments and let me know what other brands you would recommend, what brands you're loving. If there's anything that you think I missed in this or my previous video of Black-owned makeup brands that are fabulous, go ahead and leave me a comment. I love the conversation. And while you're down there, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, or you can give it a thumbs down. We'll take the engagement either way. The algorithm isn't really picky, and neither am I. While you're down there, don't forget to hit subscribe and also hit that bell icon so you can get notified of all future uploads. I upload at least one video a week, usually on Tuesdays, and sometimes I even have a bonus video for you. Ooh, spicy. If you'd like to chat, banter, or commiserate between uploads, all of my social media will be linked down in the description box, including a link to my website, The World of Champagne, at janessaj.com. Thank you so much for watching. I love and appreciate all of you. I am so excited. Black Lives Matter. Let's support some great Black-owned businesses. Let's keep it going. It's not a trend. We're going to keep doing it through 2021 and beyond. And until I see you again, bye.